My 17-year-old had final exams today. She didn't get as high of a grade as she wanted. It was a C. She came home literally crying and screaming about it while I, 43-year-old female, was working up in my home office. My job requires a lot of video calls with other leaders in my organization, which is exactly what was happening when she came in the door. I had to mute myself so the background noise didn't carry and couldn't participate in my meeting. I didn't react angrily toward her, but later I made a semi-passive aggressive remark about it. Something to the effect of, "Yeah, I love it when you come home screaming when I'm on a work call." She launched a verbal attack about how she can't help it, that she is depressed, and how could I possibly be angry, and said that I am horrible to her and don't care about her. I replied that she is allowed to be sad about a bad grade, but it doesn't warrant screaming and crying when she knows I am working. It's okay to be sad, but there is a time, place, and way of expressing it that won't cause me problems at work, which is important because that is what keeps a roof over our head and food on the table. So should I be more sensitive to her emotional state, or was I perfectly justified in my reaction? I really want to know so I can either work on myself as a parent or show her the opposite viewpoints posted here. She is now demanding that I apologize to her, but I think I was being reasonable because at 17, she needs to grow up a bit to prepare to function in the real world, where that behavior won't be tolerated. I think she owes me an apology. Now for an update. I appreciate all your comments about how she may be experiencing an issue with her mental health. You're exactly right. I should have mentioned a few things. 1. We've had this conversation before about the importance of quiet, so yes, I have spoken to her about this maturely as a good parent. I also didn't make this remark in the moment, but later when she was calm, and that was after I had given her a hug and talked about it. The remark I made was probably not kind, but was intended as a roundabout sort of reminder that her tantrums have consequences. 2. Yes, she does struggle with anxiety and depression and has been since she was little, but she has been in therapy that whole time and sees a psychiatrist. I have actively tried to help her for the last 14 years or so and have been empathetic and patient. Also, this is not something she waits for home to let out. This is a deeper emotional regulation problem, I think. I actually am super empathetic to neurodivergence in mental health, but I can't help but wonder if she sometimes uses this as a crutch. Before you berate me for that statement, there has been a very fine line we have been dancing around between things that are out of her control and things that she just won't work on because she won't take responsibility and just blames mental health. So for example, refusing to work on things in therapy and instead just saying that she can't help it. Because I don't always know where that line is, I usually err on the side of it not being in her control. However, I do worry that in doing so, I am not helping her emotionally regulate. It's just me and my daughter with no one to help guide me as a parent. So I definitely don't pretend to get it right all the time. That is why I appreciate your perspectives so much. 3. I've always tried to correct this behavior. One problem is the co-parent I had working against me for so long, who did allow this behavior at his house and undermined me and put me down to my daughter. My daughter is now actually very aware that his behavior was unacceptable and acknowledges how hard I have tried to be a good parent all these years. Co-parent passed away like 6 years ago and still trying to undo the damage. But again, she is in therapy and sees a psychiatrist. 4. It's not just muting a meeting. I was expected to be speaking. 5. This kid is smart, and this was one grade, and overall her grade point average is over 3.8, and she is going to a local state school, so this one grade is not going to ruin anything for her. Additionally, I later found out this was a weighted grade that equated to a B6. She is always loud. She sings, she talks to herself, she sometimes sort of screams for the smallest reasons. I found something I was looking for. I just remembered my friend is coming over. I like chocolate. This part is not a disorder, it's her personality. I've asked her nicely to keep it down many times before. Not all the time, just for a short while between getting home from school and when I am done working. I don't mind all weekend or in the evening. I apologize that I referred to this as main character syndrome. Poor choice of words, was just trying to describe the way she feels like she is starring in a show and doesn't necessarily realize how loud she is being or how other people are reacting to the behavior. She would agree with this as we've talked about it before. She is just very theatrical. 7. Yes, I could go into the office. It's a 40-minute commute each way, so with gas, mileage, and wear and tear, I just try to avoid it. I guess I feel like she isn't a little kid anymore and should be able to emotionally regulate more than she does. 8. Despite all this info, yes, a passive-aggressive remark isn't the way to go. I hear you on that one, and I truly do appreciate all your opposing perspectives. They do help me take a step back and reassess the situation. Many people mention autism. I thought this might be the case when she was as young as 3, but was assured her symptoms didn't look like autism. Sounds like maybe I need to revisit that with her doctor. Current diagnosis is depression, anxiety, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and borderline personality disorder. She isn't taking attention deficit hyperactivity disorder meds at the moment. Stimulants were not good for her, so we're trying Prozac and a mood stabilizer, and something for anxiety she can take as needed. I am very involved in her mental health challenges. We've been trying to figure this out for years. She is doing dialectical behavior therapy and has done cognitive behavioral therapy. She is even doing some rapid eye movement therapy now. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, but maybe have a discussion with her when she is calm about being mindful of your working hours and the conditions that the house needs to be quiet during those hours. She can be upset, but yes, there is a time and place. She can go to her room and cry and scream and can talk to you about her frustration at a later time. I don't know if I'd apologize for letting her know she was acting inappropriately, but maybe apologize if you made her feel like her feelings didn't matter and explain how you do care about her and her feelings. But it's very frustrating to not be able to properly work. She owes you an apology for how she acted and then reacted to you. But I wouldn't outright tell her that she owes you one until after this whole discussion if she doesn't say something sooner. Comment 2. Everyone sucks here. Daughter needs to keep working on her issues. Work from home is exactly that. Work from home. It is not a sterile office environment. Too many people expect everyone else in the house to act like they are in an office environment. Daughter's behavior is out of line, but employers have to understand if they are expecting people to work from home that you do not have control over everything else happening in the house. If they can't handle that, then they need to have their staff in the office. Both my husband and I work from home. It was agreed early that if he couldn't handle the noise of the children living, which does include laughter, fighting, crying, and all the things that come with teenagers, then he needs to find a new office. It's a home first. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all your comments and advice from the last post. So a lot has happened since then. After that incident with my daughter's grade, things seemed to calm down for a bit. She apologized for her outburst, and I apologized for my passive-aggressive remark. We had a heart-to-heart about her mental health and how we both need to work on better communication. I thought we were making progress, but then things took a turn. About 2 weeks ago, she had another meltdown, this time over a disagreement with a friend. She came home in tears and I could tell she was really struggling. I tried to comfort her, but she was inconsolable. She locked herself in her room and refused to come out for hours. I was worried, so I called her therapist, who suggested we come in for an emergency session the next day. During the session, her therapist brought up some past trauma that my daughter had never fully dealt with. It turns out that her father's death had a much bigger impact on her than I realized. She had been bottling up a lot of anger and sadness, and it was starting to spill over into other areas of her life. The therapist suggested that we start family therapy to work through these issues together. We started family therapy last week, and it's been eye-opening. My daughter has been more open about her feelings, and I've learned a lot about how my actions have affected her. For example, she told me that my constant reminders about being quiet during work hours made her feel like she was a burden. She said she felt like she couldn't express herself at home, which only added to her anxiety and depression. I've been trying to be more mindful of how I talk to her, but it's not easy. Old habits die hard, and I still find myself getting frustrated when she's loud or disruptive. I'm working on it though, and I think she appreciates the effort. But then something happened that threw everything into chaos. My daughter's school called me last Friday to let me know that she had been caught cheating on a test. I was shocked. She's always been a good student, and I couldn't believe she would do something like that. When I confronted her about it, she broke down and admitted that she had been feeling so much pressure to keep her grades up that she didn't know what else to do. This was a huge blow. Not only was I disappointed in her, but I also felt like I had failed as a parent. I had been so focused on her mental health that I hadn't noticed how much stress she was under academically. We had a long talk about it, and I assured her that her mental well-being was more important than her grades. I also told her that cheating was never the answer, and that we would work together to find better ways to manage her stress. The school decided to give her a second chance, but she has to attend a series of counseling sessions and complete a project on academic integrity. She's been really down about it, and I can tell she's struggling to stay motivated. I've been trying to be supportive, but it's hard when I'm dealing with my own feelings of guilt and frustration. On top of all this, my job has been more demanding than ever. I've had to take on extra projects, and the stress is starting to get to me. I've been having trouble sleeping, and I've noticed that I'm more irritable than usual. I'm trying to find a balance between work and home life, but it feels like I'm constantly failing at both. Last night, things came to a head. My daughter had another meltdown, this time over a minor disagreement about dinner. She started yelling and throwing things, and I lost my temper. I yelled back, and before I knew it, we were both screaming at each other. She stormed out of the house and didn't come back for hours. When she finally did, she was calm but distant. She barely spoke to me and went straight to her room. I feel like I'm at my wit's end. I don't know how to help her, and I don't know how to keep my own stress from affecting her. I've been thinking a lot about my own childhood and how my parents dealt with my outbursts. My mom was always patient and understanding, but my dad had a short temper. I see a lot of him in myself, and it scares me. I don't want to be that kind of parent, but I don't know how to change. I've also been thinking about my relationship with my daughter's father. We had a lot of issues, and I wonder if some of her behavior is a result of the tension she witnessed between us. I've tried to shield her from the worst of it, but kids are perceptive. They pick up on things even when you think they're not paying attention. I'm trying to stay hopeful, but it's hard. I feel like we're stuck in a cycle of anger and frustration, and I don't know how to break it. I'm committed to continuing therapy and working on our relationship, but I worry that it might not be enough. I just want her to be happy and healthy, but I don't know if I'm capable of giving her what she needs. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for telling my selfish friend to stop buying cigarettes and pay for her kids' swim lessons? Instead, I, 25 years old female, have been friends with Emily, also 25 years old female, since middle school. Emily and I had similar upbringings. We grew up on the poverty line, using food banks and being close to eviction as children. I am also child-free by choice, as I am self-aware enough to know that I am too selfish of a person now to have children. I had nothing as a kid. I want all my things now. Emily, also a relatively selfish person, is not as self-aware and does not like to sacrifice her joys in life for anyone. Unfortunately, this includes her 6-year-old daughter, Emma. Emily has many vices that she enjoys: shopping, some alcohol, fast food, and most of all, cigarettes and marijuana. Money is tight for everyone, but she ensures she always has what she needs, especially the last two. In the past few months, Emma has asked for several things, and the answer has always been no. The biggest one being a bike for her birthday, and then more recently, swim lessons, as it's June and her friends all go to the rec center to swim. Yesterday, while running errands, we were in a store, and Emma asked again if she could have swim lessons because she wanted to be able to go to the pool with her friends over summer break from school. Emily once again told her that they were too expensive and that they couldn't afford them, and Emma started to cry. Emily apologized to her and explained that money was tight before turning around to pay for her 2 cartons of cigarettes. When we got back to their place, Emma, who was still upset, went to the couch and put on a movie. I pulled Emily into her bedroom and took the opportunity to explain that I believe it's important for Emma to take those lessons. Emily repeated that she didn't have the money, and I said, "You don't have the money for her, but you have the money to smoke?" Emily immediately became defensive and called me a jerk who doesn't understand what it's like to be a single mom. I agreed, but reminded her that we both know what it's like to miss out on things in childhood, and it felt like Emma was going to suffer the same fate. Emily basically told me to leave if I was going to accuse her of being a bad parent, before leaving her bedroom and storming outside to have a cigarette. I ended up leaving after saying goodbye to Emma, and now Emily is refusing to speak to me. I am just worried that this kid is going to be on the outside looking in because her mom isn't prioritizing her. But I know I could have worded things better. Am I the idiot? Now for an update, for those asking, I do not know how to swim, so I would teach her if I could. I think the main thing with the swimming lessons isn't the actual learning how to do the skill, but being around other kids her age outside of school park. And just typing this out, I realize how sad this is. Someone mentioned that Emma was probably something else that Emily just had to have, and you are correct. Since we were teenagers, Emily has stated that all she wanted to be was a mom. So she is. Today, she asked me if I could help her pick up something for Emma. Emily does not have a vehicle. I do. I asked what it was when we were on our way to go get it, and it was a scooter that she had found on Facebook Marketplace, which I guess is something. I did not apologize for what I said, and I don't plan to. She has not asked for an apology yet, but I feel like that request is just under the surface. I also made a new no smoking in my car rule. I just had my car detailed, so she is not allowed to smoke in it anymore. So she was testy for the 2-hour journey to get the scooter and back to her place, but at least we know she can live without a cigarette for an hour or so. Thank you all for the comments regarding how I may have been the jerk, but it was a justified thing. My husband agrees with me as well and actually didn't want me to take Emily to run this errand, but if it's going to make Emma happy, I'm okay with it. I have set the ground rule that cigarette runs will not be completed with the use of my vehicle. I will not be taking her to go get the things, nor will I be helping her get her marijuana or fast food until she finds a way to get Emma swim lessons. We have a great public transport system here for that if she wants it. And yes, I have explained this to her, which was met with a very agitated fine. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I feel so bad for that kid, honestly. It's obvious her mom has no concern for her needs, and this is a vicious cycle of bad parenting. Eventually, she will grow up and treat her child in a similar fashion. You're kind of a jerk since at the end of the day, it truly is none of your business. But I don't know anyone who wouldn't have done what you did, and I don't blame you for it. Comment 2. She bought 2 cartons of cigarettes? That's 20 packs of cigarettes. How much does she freaking smoke? If she's buying cigarettes in Zaza, then yes, she is putting her vices before her kid. A kid should know how to swim just for safety's sake. I feel bad for her kid. Having a parent who reeks of cigarettes and pot is awful. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. After the scooter incident, things were tense between Emily and me. We didn't talk much, but I could tell she was still upset about our argument. I decided to give her some space, but I couldn't stop thinking about Emma and how she was missing out on so much. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. A couple of days later, Emily called me out of the blue. She sounded different, almost desperate. She asked if I could come over because she needed to talk. When I got there, she was sitting on the couch, looking more stressed than I'd ever seen her. Emma was in her room playing quietly. Emily told me that she had been thinking a lot about what I said and that she realized I was right. She admitted that she had been neglecting Emma's needs and that she wanted to change, but she didn't know how. Emily then dropped the news. She confessed that she had been hiding a secret from me for years. She had a gambling problem. She had been using the money she should have been spending on Emma for gambling, hoping to win big and solve all her financial problems. She broke down in tears, saying she felt like a terrible mother and didn't know how to stop. I was shocked and he didn't know what to say at first. I felt a mix of anger and sadness for Emily and Emma. I knew this was a turning point and I had to make a hard choice. I could either walk away and let Emily deal with her problems on her own, or I could try to help her and Emma, even though it would be difficult. I decided to help. I told Emily that the first step was to get professional help for her gambling addiction. She agreed, and we spent the next few hours researching local support groups and therapists. We found a support group that met twice a week, and Emily promised to attend the next meeting. Over the next few days, I helped Emily set up a budget and find ways to cut back on her expenses. We went through her finances and found that she could afford swim lessons for Emma if she stopped gambling and cut back on her other vices. Emily was hesitant at first, but she eventually agreed to give it a try. I also talked to Emma about the swim lessons. She was so excited when I told her that she would be able to join her friends at the pool. Seeing her smile made all the effort worth it. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to help Emily and Emma get through this. Emily started attending the support group meetings, and I could see a change in her. She was more focused and determined to be a better mother for Emma. She even started looking for a part-time job to help with the finances. It was a slow process, but I could see that she was trying. One day, Emily called me and asked if I could come over again. When I got there, she had a surprise for me. She had signed Emma up for swim lessons and had already paid for the first month. Emma was over the moon, and I could see the pride in Emily's eyes. It was a small victory, but it felt like a huge step in the right direction. However, not everything was smooth sailing. Emily had a relapse and went back to gambling one night. She lost a significant amount of money, and it set her back financially. She was devastated and felt like she had failed. I reminded her that recovery is a process and that setbacks are part of the journey. We talked about what triggered her relapse and how she could avoid it in the future. Emily's relapse had consequences. She couldn't afford to pay for the next month of swim lessons, and Emma was heartbroken. I decided to step in and cover the cost for that month. I knew it wasn't a long-term solution, but I couldn't bear to see Emma so disappointed. Emily was grateful, but I made it clear that she needed to stay committed to her recovery and find a way to support Emma on her own. During this time, I also learned more about Emily's past. She told me about her father, who had a gambling problem, and how it had affected her childhood. She had always promised herself that she wouldn't end up like him, but she realized that she had fallen into the same trap. Understanding her past helped me see why she struggled so much and made me even more determined to help her break the cycle. Emily's journey to recovery was filled with ups and downs. There were days when she was strong and focused, and other days when she felt like giving up. I tried to be there for her as much as I could, but I also had to set boundaries to protect my own well-being. It was a delicate balance, but I knew it was necessary. As Emily continued to work on her recovery, I noticed a change in Emma as well. She seemed happier and more confident. She made new friends at the pool and even started talking about joining a swim team. Seeing her thrive gave me hope that things could get better for both her and Emily. In the end, helping Emily and Emma was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the most rewarding. It taught me the importance of compassion, patience, and the power of second chances. I don't know what the future holds for Emily and Emma, but I do know that they have a better chance now than they did before. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for divorcing my husband because he refused to protect our home for our kids? My friend is married to a much older guy. They have 2 kids who are of elementary school age. This is her first marriage and his second. He has 2 kids from his first marriage who are in their early 30s. Both of them are living with partners and have established jobs. They have no issues on the monetary side, and one of them has kids themselves. My friend, who I will refer to as Irene, works in education, and although she doesn't make a huge salary, she does okay. Her husband, who I will refer to as Carl, will retire next year from a well-paying job. They live in the home that Carl bought before they met, and only his name is on the deed. They pool their finances for household expenses, and she also contributes to the mortgage. With their recent marriage came the issue of organizing their affairs, one of which was a will. The problem was that Carl is dead set on wanting his inheritance to be equally split between his 4 kids and Irene. This means that they each inherit 20%, regardless of their ages or situation, with no caveats about leaving Irene and the younger kids in the house while the kids are underage. Essentially, Irene will have to sell the house in order to give each of the kids their share. Carl also doesn't want to make different arrangements while his 2 youngest kids are underage because he is adamant that they should be treated equally. While this is fine in principle, the reality is that Carl will most likely be the first to die. Given his age, he is often mistaken for his kid's grandfather, so it's not unlikely for this to happen while his kids are still underage. The notary was a bit baffled by his choices, which he brought up at the meeting to discuss the terms. Irene had no idea that this was Carl's plan, and understandably, she feels vulnerable. The notary tried to suggest to Carl that it would be more prudent to set conditions about the ages of the kids, and perhaps also to have the surviving spouse live in the house, which is then sold and distributed among the kids once that spouse dies too. Equally, of course. Carl was not open to any provisions the notary suggested for Irene to have some form of buffer while the kids are still at home. He all but called Irene a gold digger and said he was sure she was resourceful enough to take care of the kids, but that he had to think about 4 kids, not 2. Carl seems to love all 4 kids equally. Side note, his older kids do not like Irene, and that is mutual. They sided with their mother in the divorce. Irene met Carl after the divorce, which the ex and the older kids don't believe. Irene came back from the notary crying her eyes out. I dropped off something at their house by chance and came while they were having an argument about Carl's choices. Carl considers me to be a rational, intelligent person and asked for my opinion. When I sided with Irene, he got angry and called me an a-hole for not realizing that important life choices should be made with logic, not emotions. I pointed out that his choices seemed illogical and potentially harmful to his 2 younger kids. He disagreed. Am I the a-hole? To add, the amount of responses is overwhelming. I can't reply to all of them. But thank you all so much for the suggestions. I will certainly recommend that she stops contributing to the mortgage unless they arrange for her to get equity out of this. And the suggestions for a life insurance policy are also good ones. I think this may be an extra insurance. I hadn't considered the equality being found in the fact that he supported his older children in their education and likely will not be around for that time for the youngest kids, certainly the youngest of those 2, so to make sure that this is taken into account when he wants it to be equal. For those telling Irene that marrying an older guy with kids is her fault, well, the heart wants what the heart wants, I think. But thank you all. Lots to think about for her, them. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Logic, don't make me laugh. Carl hasn't factored in that his older children have had an additional 20 years of his financial support and housing, and his budget doesn't account for that at all. The logical thing for Irene to do is divorce him now and get all the assets split with an equitable arrangement that gives her enough support to raise the younger, dependent children as a single parent. Then he can leave his half to whoever he wants. Irene should also do it now before he retires. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Why is Irene contributing to a mortgage when she is neither on the deed nor will have the right to stay in the house, even while the children are young? My first step, if I were her, would be to give Carl the ultimatum that if he doesn't provide in his will for his underage children properly, then she would stop contributing to the mortgage, since her contribution is clearly not needed nor valued. She's just a gold digger, and she's not going to get anything more than the 20% back anyway. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support and advice. So things have gotten pretty intense over the last few days. After the argument at the notary's office, Irene and Carl barely spoke to each other. Irene was really upset and felt like Carl didn't care about her or the younger kid's future. She decided to take some of your advice and stop contributing to the mortgage. This led to another huge argument. Carl accused her of being selfish and not thinking about the family as a whole. Irene shot back that he was the one being selfish by not considering the immediate needs of their younger kids. The tension in the house was unbearable. Irene confided in me that she was thinking about taking the kids and leaving, but she didn't have anywhere to go. Her parents live in another state, and she didn't want to uproot the kids from their school and friends. She felt trapped and didn't know what to do. I suggested she look into renting a place nearby, but with her salary, it would be tough to afford something decent. Meanwhile, Carl's older kids got wind of the situation. They called Carl and told him they thought he was doing the right thing by treating all the kids equally. They even hinted that they thought Irene was trying to manipulate him. This only made Carl more stubborn. He told Irene that he was sticking to his plan and that she needed to accept it. Irene was devastated. She felt like she was fighting a losing battle. She started looking into legal options and found out that she might be able to contest the will if Carl passed away, but it would be a long and expensive process. She didn't want to put the kids through that, but she also didn't want to lose the house and everything she had worked for. In the middle of all this, Carl had a health scare. He collapsed at work and was rushed to the hospital. It turned out to be a minor heart attack. This shook everyone up, including Carl. For a moment, it seemed like he might reconsider his stance on the will. He told Irene that he realized how fragile life was and that he didn't want to leave things in a mess. But when he recovered, he went back to his old ways. He said that the scare made him even more determined to stick to his plan because he wanted to make sure everything was in order. Irene was at her wit's end. She felt like she was running out of options. She started talking to a lawyer about the possibility of getting a divorce. The lawyer told her that if she divorced Carl, she might be able to get some spousal support and possibly keep the house until the kids were older. But it would be a tough fight, especially since Carl's name was the only one on the deed. Irene didn't want to get a divorce. She still loved Carl, despite everything. She wanted to find a way to make things work, but she didn't see how that was possible. She felt like she was being forced to choose between her marriage and her kids' future. One night, after another heated argument, Carl told Irene that if she couldn't accept his plan, maybe they should go their separate ways. Irene was heartbroken. She didn't want to break up the family, but she also couldn't live with the uncertainty and the constant fighting. She told Carl that she needed some time to think and took the kids to stay with a friend for a few days. During this time, Irene started to reflect on her relationship with Carl. She realized that there had always been a power imbalance. Carl was older, more financially stable, and had more life experience. She had always felt like she had to prove herself to him and his older kids. She started to see that maybe she had been ignoring some red flags because she wanted to believe that their love was enough to overcome any obstacles. Irene also thought about her own upbringing. Her parents had always struggled financially, and she had vowed to give her kids a better life. She realized that she had been so focused on making things work with Carl that she had lost sight of what was best for her kids. She decided that she needed to put them first, even if it meant making some tough decisions. When Irene returned home, she told Carl that she wanted a divorce. Carl was shocked. He had never thought that Irene would actually leave him. He tried to convince her to stay, but Irene was firm. She told him that she couldn't live with the uncertainty and that she needed to do what was best for the kids. The divorce process was messy and painful. Carl's older kids were furious and accused Irene of trying to take their father's money. Carl tried to fight for the house, but in the end, the court awarded it to Irene until the younger kids were of age. Carl was ordered to pay spousal support and child support, but it was a bitter victory for Irene. She had lost the man she loved and had to start over, but she felt like she had made the right choice for her kids. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.